Go.
Hi everybody, my name is Kelly Grant. I am a PhD student at Concordia University and I am studying 18th century clothing. Today I am going to be teaching you how to drape a lady's 18th century bodice so that we may be able to make a gown later on for my client. My client is Jenny Milligan of Mrs. Milligan's Millinery and Haberdashery. I got that right? Yes?
Well done.
And I have her stays ready for a fitting point. So the fit is, I'm very happy with it. The bone channels are all sewn in. And now all I have to do is finish them. But in order to expedite the process, I'm going to drape her bodice now so that I can work on her clothing after she goes back home. So, to do this, I'm using what I call factory cotton. Other people will call it cotton muslin. It's quilters use it to back their quilts with. It is unwashed in its very sized state, and you don't want to wash it because you want that sizing in the cloth. And I'm going to start in the back. So I'll get Jenny to turn around. And I've cut a rectangle that I'm going to use for her back. And now I'm going to fold an edge. To start as my guideline. And that's all you have to do is just finger press it. And I'm going to follow Jenny's spine for this first piece. And I'm pinning through to her stays. It's important for her to have her stays on at this point because she's going to wear the gown with stays underneath it. And so we know that when she laces her stays on, her gown is going to fit. I hope I didn't poke you there.
Nope.
I didn't see a twitch.
So you can see that I can't get in there nicely without creating a wodge of fabric, so I'm going to make a release cut up to her waist. Maybe two. I don't want to go up too far into her waist because I want the back of her gown to have a nice swallowtail in the back. Now, what I've done here is cut roughly where I'm going to want the seam line to be.
At this point, it's not precise, right?
It's not precise at this point, no. It's just a rough guide of where her body is. There. And turn around. No, I need you the other way.
Okay.
I need you right here.
Mark 1 eyeballs.
Mark 1 eyeball.
That's how she's measuring right now. Mark 1 eyeball.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm measuring the rough distance to the bottom of her stays to where I want the top of her gown, and roughly measuring from the front of her stays to the back piece that I've already draped, so that I can have a baseline to cut my rectangle. I'm going to finger press that front edge again. And I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to stop talking for a few minutes because I'll have pins in my mouth.
Just the first thing they tell you not to do, and I think it's great that you do it. Wild thing.
My wife, the rebel. So center front.
And I'm being very careful with the pins so that I don't poke Jenny in the belly, because that's not very polite. And I'm smoothing the fabric around. And yes, we have a bit of a bosom line, but that'll all smooth out once her gown is made. And I'm slowly smoothing this around, and then I'm going to cut into it with some relief cuts so that we can get around to her back.
So where do you determine the relief cuts?
The fabric is going to tell me where the relief cuts need to be. It's going to start to buckle. You can see the lines here. That cut needs to be up a little higher. And you want to be careful not to cut her clothes. And she can rest her arm on top of my head if she needs to, if she's tall enough.
The real test of a deodorant. Or a friendship. And why, yes, we have been quarantining for
Yes.
the duration.
Here we go. So that'll be part of her front bodice. Back to pins in my mouth.
So no questions from the class. So at this point, do you, of course, with pins in their mouth.
Just a sec.
Yeah. Is it still to the bodice, or the stays, or to the other piece that you just pinned on?
A little bit to both.
Okay.
I'm pinning to the other piece, but because the other piece is pinned to her stays, it's all connected.
Yeah.
And we're going to stop and give Jenny a little break. Hi. Jenny's had a bit of a break. It's important to sit while we're doing this because you could overextend your model and you don't want them passing out during a fitting process. So it's good to take breaks during the process. And after she's had her break, I've gone, and I'll get you to turn around slowly, I've gone and cleaned up the draping. So I have my back seam line, the front bodice, and the back bodice. And now I'm going to draw on her with a Sharpie pen. And it's important to make sure that you're using something that is not going to bleed through to the other clothing, but also to commit to your lines. So sit back, look at the body, see where the line needs to be, and then commit to it. If you draw too many lines on it, when you go to transfer it to paper, then you'll be confused by all of the lines. So, according to 18th century dresses, we want a smooth line going across the top. We need a shoulder strap line. And then we need the armhole. So I'm going to get you to turn slightly. There we go. And I'm following the top of her stays for the armhole line. And I want to be sure to give her body enough space right here where this join is in her armpit so that it's not constricting. But I also want to have her bodice of her gown support her bust line. So the top strap will be here. And then the top of her neckline. Woo-hoo! Woo-hoo! Okay, and that line will continue over. Now I'm going to draw in a nice swoop for her waistline. And I'm going to go slightly higher on her hips. And then a nice swallowtail. But I'm also going to mark where her waistline is on her body. And then the last thing I'm going to do is mark in my seam line.
Give me that nice waist illusion.
So you're marking both pieces there.
Both pieces, yeah. Jenny, I'll get you to turn slightly this way. And I'm going to leave the pins in, but just in case they fall out. When I go to take the draping off, I'll be careful with where I take my pins off. And then the last thing I'm going to do, because it's going to be a stomacher front bodice to her gown, I am going to draw in the stomacher line. And we want to come from the shoulder strap in a nice line.
I don't have the right angle here. Okay. Okay, show me that line again.
So a line from the shoulder strap down over her bust and in a straight line. And then this part will be the stomacher and this part will be the gown. So I did not use a commercial pattern. I tend not to. I draped the bodices directly onto the body that I'm going to be working with, especially for ladies wear, because ladies wear in the period were draped garments. You could start with a bodice pattern and then fit your own muslin, and then once you're done with the fitting muslin, transfer it over into paper, and then that will be your pattern for your gowns going forward. I don't need a pattern to start with because I've been trained to drape garments on the body, so I just forego that step and drape the pattern on the body. Okay, now that the bodice is all drawn, I'm going to quickly fit a strap to go over her shoulder and then do a quick fitting on a sleeve so that I know where her arm is and how big her arm is and how long to make the strap.
Why do you say quick? Just because it's easy for you?
Because it's easy for me. Also, the sleeve shape is pretty standard. So I have cut a sleeve already. I'm going to turn the sleeve this way.
That won't be falling off.
It feels good?
Yeah.
Okay. Pen. Now we're going to draw the top of her arm, and then I'm feeling to where the shoulder bone is and going slightly above it. And then on this side.
That's for the neckline, right?
For the neckline, yeah. Now, the sleeve is shaped. This is the back armhole. That's the front armhole. The back armhole, that point, meets right here.
Where your marks?
Right where my marks are for my strap. And when you know this, it works. We're sticking to Jenny's sleeve a little bit too much.
So what did you just do there?
I just pinned her underarm.
Okay.
Just so I know where how big around her bicep is. Thank you for the word. Okay. That has a little bit of ease, but not quite enough for my liking. So I'm going to make a note. Like, I'm happy with this measurement around her arm, but this measurement needs to be splayed a little bit more to give her more ease. So what I'm going to do is make a note, and also a note. So this one I want an extra inch in height, and I would say this way another inch in ease, which will be eased into the sleeve cap, maybe even 2 inches, so that we can have some pleating back here. I want to see where her elbow is. And I may put in a little dart right here to cut her elbow, which is also seen in period dresses. There we go. We have a pattern now. Now I'm going to carefully unpin Jenny so that the pattern all stays together. And then I will go downstairs and transfer the factory cotton pattern to a paper pattern. And it'll be the paper pattern that I will cut her linen bodice from. And then I will start the draping process of the gown from the linen bodice that I will cut from her paper pattern.
Lining? Lining?
The lining, yeah. I don't want to use the factory cotton as a lining because factory cotton will stretch and shift. And I want a nice pattern that I can then go forward and make any number of gowns for Jenny from. So she's rather excited. So it's good to have a paper pattern copy so that you know that that's your pattern and it's not going to move anywhere, it's not going to distort, it's not going to shift. And very carefully, making sure I didn't pin you anywhere. I can take the sleeve off. I'm leaving this seam pinned until I'm ready to, both this seam and this seam, until I'm ready to transfer it over to paper. And there we go, the Jenny bodice. And now we're going to give our fit model a break again and get her out of her stays. So now that we've had a break and Mrs. Milligan is out of her stays and relaxed, if you like what you have seen, hit the subscribe button, give me a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit the dingly bell to see when the next time I upload a video. I would like to thank Jenny Milligan of Mrs. Milligan's Millinery and Haberdashery, I said it better that time, for being my fit model for this project. And we will have her up and dressed fairly shortly. Thanks, everybody.